Two born-again Christians decide to travel to Scotland to convert the heathens to Christianity in this sequel to The Wicker Man, Robin Hardy's The Wicker Tree. Does it live up to the original? Is it better than the sequel? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So when this movie originally came out, I was already a fan of The Wicker Man. I want to say that The Wicker Tree came out in 2010, and there was a lot of hype behind it, just for the fact that Robin Hardy was returning to write and direct this film. For those that don't know, he is the one that directed the original Wicker Man, the 1973 classic with Christopher Lee. And so there was hype that this was going to be a really good movie. It had to be better than the 2006 Nicolas Cage The Wicker Man remake. And so the plot of the film, like I said, is about two Christians from Texas going on a mission to convert some heathens, some pagans in Scotland. They don't go to Summerisle. They never mention Summerisle, but they just go to Scotland. And apparently this town in Scotland is full of pagans. They go door to door preaching the gospel to win the lost, and things may not turn out as hopeful as they thought. So what did I think about this film? So one thing that Robin Hardy brought back is the music. That's something that was missing from the remake of The Wicker Man. The music is plentiful in this film. You have singing from the Christians. You have the pagan heathens in Scotland singing some of their songs, some of their traditional folk songs of the town. Another thing that was brought back, that Robin Hardy brought back to the film that was missing from the remake, is the conflict between pagans and Christians. That has returned. So this time, instead of having strictly staunch Christian coming into a pagan world and never swaying, wavering from his faith, such as what we saw in the original Wicker Man, this time in the Wicker Tree, we have Christians going into the pagan world and maybe being tempted to lose their faith and convert into evil. I guess you could say that they're giving in to their temptations to maybe leave their faith behind, and the conflict there is between that. So there is something new here. It's not just a straight remake or a retelling of the original Wicker Man, but there is an original script to it that uses new ideas. And some ideas remind me of a film that would come a few years later that I will talk about. So what did I think about the film? So the film overall is better than The Wicker Man, the 2006 Wicker Man. Nothing will ever be better than the original 1973 film. The songs on The Wicker Tree are there, but they are not as memorable as the ones from the original film. And sadly, there are some parts of this new film that are kind of slow and there's the pacing is off a little bit. You kind of get, they're boring parts, I'll just say it. Compared to the original The Wicker Man, where it was going and interesting, this one did have some lull moments. What I thought was interesting about this film, The Wicker Tree, is that it also indulged a little bit into what I've spoken about on this channel not that long ago, about how the gods of the Romans came to Britain and how the gods of Britain, the Celts, I should say, and the Romans kind of merged together. So I've spoken of that before on a video for those that have been watching this channel in particular. So the goddess that they mention is Solis, who is a goddess of the hot springs, and they do have the Roman baths in Bath, the UK town city of Bath. There are the Roman baths, and in real life, and they are dedicated to Solis Minerva. And they do talk about the connection between Solis, the Celtic goddess Solis, and how the Romans called her Minerva. So you got that Celtic, British, Roman, polytheistic kind of talk in this film, which I thought was interesting. And so the ultimate plan for these pagans is kind of like the original Wicker Man. So we know in the original Wicker Man that they wanted sacrifices to bring back the harvest. In this film, they want sacrifices to bring back another kind of harvest, to have children. The the people of this city, that this town of where this film takes place, are sterile. They cannot have children due to something that is going on caused by somebody. I don't want to give again, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a human cause behind what is making the people suffer. And so they're wanting to sacrifice to the ancient Celtic gods, much like in the original film, to get a different kind of harvest this time. So overall, I think the film is tons better than the remake because the soul of the film, of the original film, is in this, and it has wholly, I'm sure, to do with Robin Hardy, who again was the director of the original Wicker Man. So if you wanted more of the Wicker Man, you definitely should check out The Wicker Tree. It is not as good as the original film, but the ideas are there. And I mentioned earlier that certain parts of this film remind me of something that happens later in another film. So they talk about, again, this takes place on May Day around Beltane, May 1st. So it's about the May Queen. And so the May Queen is going to be covered in flowers by the end. And what does that remind you of if you've seen folk horror that are about pagans killing innocent people, I guess we could say? That gives me flashbacks, or at the time, flash forwards to the film I've mentioned before, Midsummer. That you've seen, if you've never seen the film Midsummer, you've probably seen pictures of the main actress being covered in flowers. And so there is a scene of the May Queen in this film that came before Midsummer of her covered in flowers. And I don't know, I cannot confirm it, but I wonder if Midsummer, the writers, directors, or whoever studied and watched The Wicker Man, The Wicker Tree, and saw this and got some kind of inspiration, because this came first before Midsummer, years before Midsummer, so I'll give it that credit. But every time I see that scene with the May Queen in this film with flowers on, for different reasons and different situations, so the reasonings are not the same of how it ends, you could say, but there's a blonde girl with flowers, and it gives me Midsummer vibes. And this film again came before Midsummer, so make of that what you will. Anyway, guys, I like The Wicker Tree. I remember liking it back then. I remember also that not a lot of people were fans of it. Not maybe they just thought of it kind of as okay. I guess maybe that's how I feel. But I will take this film over the remake that Nicolas Cage was in for sure. So I would say that if you love The Wicker Tree, definitely give it a watch, because you can find The Wicker Tree. It's more accessible. I seem to find that way more on these free streaming sites and stuff than you do like even the Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man. And like I said on the remake review, you can't even find hardly the Nicolas Cage movie. They just kind of bury that and let history forget it, you know. Anyway, guys, so that is the trilogy. So we did The Wicker Man, I reviewed the Wicker Man remake, and I'm ending it with The Wicker Tree. So what's interesting that you may not have noticed is that people celebrate Samhain on different days. It's not just October 31st, which is the mainstream view of when Samhain is. So depending on what calendar you follow, or if you follow where the planets and stars and stuff are, there's different ways to determine when Samhain truly is, depending on what you would follow. Some think it's October 31st, some say November 1st, some say November 12th, and so forth. And so these dates that I've chosen to release these Wicker Man episodes are different dates that people celebrate Samhain. So for those that don't know, so a little bit of trivia for you guys. You know, there's a hidden message or meaning behind why I'm posting these on certain days. Anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this trilogy of reviews, and I will see you I will see you later. Live long and prosper, and good day.
The spirit of ecstasy, but this here is our goddess Suas. Sir Lachlan had her made special for this classic Hotchkiss, built 1929 as part of his collection of great cars of the past, as you might say.
Zeus is our Celtic name for her. Of course, the Romans, when they were here, called her Minerva, and she doesn't suffer fools gladly. She is the goddess of the bright, intelligent people we all like to think we are.